And dozens more will join on September 4th from Tunisia and other countries.
Sailing together to break the illegal siege of Gaza, demand an end to the genocide.
And to finally open up a humanitarian corridor.
And while we are at sea, we're calling on everyone to support this global movement.
To join the encampments and demonstrations that will happen simultaneously.
Now is the moment to maximize pressure.
So we need you.
Follow the global Samud Flotilla page.
Share, engage, donate.
But most of all, register to participate.
Captains, crew, journalists, people with platforms, organizers, medical workers, and humans of the world.
On land or at sea, we are all together and we need you.
Come to our launch events.
Mobilize in your own country.
Spread the word that the decisive moment has come.
To mobilize with the Palestinian people to stop genocide.
And demand a free Palestine.
And a free world.
Join us.
The Global Samud Flotilla.
Global Samud Flotilla.
The Global Samud Flotilla.
The global Samud Flotilla.
That they get kidnapped by Israeli terrorists. Israelis have kidnapped many activists, including Greta Thunberg.
My name is Stephen Wahab and I come from Portland, Oregon. If you're watching this video, I've been kidnapped by the IOF and taken to Israel against my will.
My name is Sul Aidil and I come from Malaysia. If you watching this video, I have been kidnapped by the IOF and taken to Israel against my will.
My name is Sumeira Akdeniz Ordo. I am a citizen of Germany. If you're watching this video, I have been abducted and taken against my will by Israeli occupation forces.
Ben Türkiye'den Osman Çetinkaya, İsrail askerleri tarafından İsrail'e götürüldüm.
I'm Thiago Avila. I'm a Brazilian citizen. If you're watching this video, it means our humanitarian mission to Gaza has been either intercepted or attacked by Israel, and we need your immediate support to pressure my government and other governments for the immediate release of all of our participants and for their safety.
My name is Kübra Çınar. I'm a German citizen. If you are watching this video, I have been kidnapped by the IOF and taken to Israel against my will.
Je m'appelle Emma Fourreau, je suis franco-suédoise et députée au Parlement européen. Si vous voyez cette vidéo, c'est que j'ai été kidnappée par Israël ou par des forces complices du génocide.
My name is Greta. I'm a citizen of Sweden. If you are watching this video, I have been abducted and taken against my will by Israeli forces.
My name is Ilya Balkis and I come from Malaysia. If you are watching this video, I have been kidnapped by the IOF and taken to Israel against my will.
Cześć, jestem Omar Fares, mam polskie obywatelstwo. Jak oglądacie ten video, to znaczy zostałem porwany nielegalnie przez okupacyjną armię Izraela na terytorium wód międzynarodowych koło Gaza.
My name is Simone Zambrin and I'm a citizen of Italy and Croatia. Our mission was non-violent and abiding by international law. Please tell my government to demand my immediate release.
My name is Christopher Hausler. I'm a citizen of the United States. If you are seeing this, I have been abducted and taken against my will to Israel. Our humanitarian mission was nonviolent and it has abided by international law.
My name is Nkosizwe Veli Lemandel. I'm a citizen of the Republic of South Africa. If you are receiving this video, it means that we have been intercepted and have been abducted by the apartheid state of Israel.
أنا اسمي عبد الله غباش مواطن من الأردن. إذا وصلكم هذا الفيديو فهذا يعني أنه تم اختطافي من قبل قوات الاحتلال الصهيوني.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Musa Noairi Kamaruzaman and I come from Malaysia. If you are watching this video, I have been kidnapped by the IOF and taken to Israel against my will. Please tell my government to bring me home and please stop the genocide.
Now this is massive and another sign of Israel's complete disregard for international laws. But why are we surprised? Isn't it what these thugs, these genocidal maniacs have done in the last 2 years with impunity? And the Western world, particularly the US, the UK and the EU have chosen to protect the rogue regime of this illegal settler colony. This is Chris Smalls, who says that the activists on board are going through some of the most challenging times as they fear an onslaught from Israeli terrorists.
Right now, we're living in some dark times in humanity. And right now, our governments around the world are failing us as people. We're seeing an attack on innocent Palestinians who have been slaughtered for the last 2 years. But we can't allow that. We have to be ready. If the global Samud Flotilla, with over 44 countries that are representing working classes from around the world, if Israel attacks one of these vessels, that is not only an attack on the vessel, but that's an attack on every single person that's in solidarity with this movement. Because what's happening now in Gaza, what's happening to the people of Palestine, is absolutely something that they want to roll out in other parts of the world. We can look at the Congo, we can look at Sudan, we can look at Yemen, we can look at Lebanon, we can look at Syria, we can look at Cuba, we can look at the global south from Venezuela, Haiti. All of these different struggles around the world are all connected. And if we're not ready as people to fight back, this will continue. So this is not just a video to understand what's going on. The power that be know what's going on. This is a call to action. If you're watching this, if you're listening to this, I'm calling upon you to do more right now. Stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And that means upon interception, we want to be glued to our phones, devices over the next few days. If this happens, that we're in the streets shutting down corporations that are complicit, shutting down embassies around the world, parliaments, governments, manufacturing weapons, and most importantly, every single dock worker, especially here in the U.S., from the East Coast to the West Coast, needs to be on strike and withhold their labor, which is our strongest weapon. Because without our labor, nothing on this planet moves. We have to understand the value of our worth. And right now, it's time to shut it down so that we see a free Palestine.
The bravery of these activists is at another level, seriously. You have to watch how Brazilian activist Thiago Avila responded to the Israeli terrorist when he and his crew were threatened by thugs from the settler colony.
You are instructed to change your course. Any further attempt to sail toward Gaza endangers your safety and places you within an active war zone. If you continue on your route and attempt to breach the naval blockade, we will stop your vessel and act to confiscate it through legal proceedings in court.
Attention, Israel offensive forces. This is Thiago Avila from the steering committee of the Global Samud Flotilla. We advise you that we are a humanitarian, non-violent solidarity mission to break the illegal siege imposed by Israel 18 years ago against the Palestinian people in Gaza and to create a humanitarian corridor. We carry only food, aid, we carry water filters, we carry crutches, we carry baby formula for the people that you've been starving to death. I repeat, you've been committing genocide for 8 decades and ethnic cleansing against the Palestinian people, and that is absolutely against international law. Once again, we are in international waters, which is not your jurisdiction. We are heading to Palestinian territorial waters, which is not your jurisdiction, despite the fact that you think you can occupy that land, but all of this is completely illegal. The highest judicial authority in the world, the International Court of Justice, in their provisional rulings on the case opened by South Africa against you for the crime of genocide, clearly stated that you are prohibited to hinder any humanitarian mission to get to Gaza. Once again, in a planet of 8 billion people, people despise you starving children to death, bombing hospitals, schools and shelters. We are here with the conscience of the world, moving peacefully in a non-violent humanitarian mission to take this aid. You are not allowed by international law to stop us. Therefore, we do not comply with your request, because your request is still an attempt to perpetuate the genocide of the Palestinian people. We are here in solidarity with them, so we do not comply with occupation, with an apartheid system, and with a racist and supremacist ideology called Zionism. Over.
We repeat, this is the...
There are reports that a Spanish warship escorting the global Sumud flotilla has decided to withdraw in the face of another Israeli violation of international laws. Now, this would be extremely disappointing if this report is indeed true, particularly when Spain has been taking really bold stand against Israel. The reaction to Israeli attempts to silence brave activists on board the global Sumud flotilla has been of utter shock. British MP Jeremy Corbyn wrote this, and I quote, "Israel has illegally intercepted the global Sumud flotilla. This disgraceful assault is a flagrant breach of international law. It is an affront to our common human decency, and it is a further denigration of the Palestinian people who are being starved to death by Israel. Many of us have repeatedly warned that this would happen, yet our government ignored our calls for urgent action. Once again, we call on the government to defend international law, impose widespread sanctions, and stop arming Israel. History will side with the flotilla, and their bravery will only inspire more people to join our global movement for Palestine." Jeremy Corbyn MP. End quote. The Freedom Flotilla coalition, which has tried to break the Israeli blockade on Gaza itself on 7 different occasions in the past, has accused Israel of kidnapping the global Sumud flotilla members in international waters. In a statement on X, the group said, and I quote, "People of conscience have been abducted. The flotilla broke no laws. What is illegal is Israel's genocide, Israel's illegal blockade of Gaza, and Israel's use of starvation as a weapon." End quote. You have to understand just how brazen these Israeli baby killers are. They have been committing the worst Holocaust since the Second World War for 2 years now, and slaughtered hundreds of thousands of unarmed and defenseless civilians, including children and babies. And they have not faced a single consequence for these war crimes. In fact, the Western governments have welcomed these war criminals by rolling out the red carpet for them. And now these demonic monsters have chosen to attack peaceful activists who are only trying to send aid materials to the desperate victims of Gaza. These activists are sailing in international water. This is very important to understand. They are sailing in international water, and they had planned to enter the Palestinian waters without venturing into the Israeli water. So what gives these Israeli thugs, Israeli terrorists, Israeli barbarians powers to defy international law and attack the peaceful activists? What would it take for the international fraternity to put these Israeli thugs in their place once and for all?
If you're not involved, move back! Get away! Somebody stay with casualties! Everybody else! He has a bomb! Go away!
He's got a bomb on him!
He's already driven a car at people outside the synagogue in Crumpsall and attacked others with a knife. At least one victim is still lying on the ground. Now police take no chances given his third potential weapon, the suspected bomb around his waist. The gunshots proved fatal, but so did his attack. 2 victims dead, 4 others injured. Here you can see the suspect's face. He's been named tonight as Jihad al-Shami, a 35-year-old British citizen of Syrian descent. Behind him, we've blurred the worshippers in the windows. For all the attackers' efforts to take more lives, security staff likely saved them by stopping him from getting inside the synagogue. It was hours before police could get near the suspect to identify him. First, bomb disposal teams had to be called in, before what sounded like a controlled explosion. In this picture, you can see a knife lying near the attacker's head, with the suspected bomb to his right. Just one clue as to his motive.
This attack has been officially declared as a terrorist incident, and the investigation is now being led by counter-terrorist police. As has been confirmed by CT policing, we believe that the identity of the offender has been established, but until we are certain of this fact, it is premature to set out this detail at this juncture. We captured what appeared to be further arrests in the surrounding streets.
Police have confirmed they've detained 3 more suspects. Yom Kippur is a time of repentance for Jewish people, of confessing sins. But as they worship in Crumpsall tonight, who will atone for the violence committed against them? To pass.
Tonight, a Jewish community already on edge, now confronting its deepest anxiety, with synagogues across Britain forced to tighten security. Visible, unsettling reminders of a threat felt nationwide.
I'm feeling devastated, I'm feeling appalled, I'm feeling scared. I'm speaking to friends and family across the UK. I know that those sentiments and feelings are replicated in many Jewish communities across the country. People that think like myself, it could have been me. I went to synagogue today on a number of different occasions, and it could have happened at my synagogue.
For many, today's attack is the culmination of a pattern of abuse and hate crime they feel has been intensifying since October the 7th, 2 years ago. Latest figures from the organisation which monitors anti-Semitism in the UK show in 2023, the same year as the Hamas attacks, it recorded nearly 4,300 anti-Jewish hate incidents, a record high. More than 3,500 were recorded in 2024, a trend that continued this year, with over 1,500 reported in just the first 6 months of 2025.
For the Jewish community, today's events in Manchester are their worst fears realised. That a rise in anti-Semitism has now given way to a violent terrorist attack against them.
This is the kind of terrorist attack that sadly we have been preparing for and expecting for a very, very long time. I don't think it's been given enough attention, enough priority, enough seriousness. Hopefully, sadly, tragically, the deadly attack today might change that.
Despite the extra patrols and the extra security, this is a community that still feels unsafe and at risk in the places that were meant to be a sanctuary. Sejal Karia, News at 10.
Well, then.
Well, a lot to unpack there, and I look really green for some reason, but that's okay. We're going to go right into it. So, this is Brian O'Shea. Welcome to Investigate Everything. We're going to talk about the Flotilla, all its falsehoods, and I put those clips together so you could kind of see the propaganda around the Flotilla, and even some of the propaganda perpetuated by the British press. Now, with the Flotilla, that last guy, that Kanta, whatever, total terrorist sympathizer, he's actually funded by Turkey. But I put that in there so you could get a sense of what the left and the liberals in this country and the rest of the crazy people are seeing when they see their news. They don't watch Rumble. They don't watch other sources of news like we do when we're investigating things. You, me, everyone on this stream. They just watch what appeals to them. And so we're going to unpack a lot of that tonight. But I wanted to get into the Flotilla, not because I'm here to say she's full of crap and blah, blah, blah, and all that. We all know. Okay, Greta Thunberg is a weirdo. She's 22 years old. The clock is ticking. She's kind of a weird adult now that's really, really short and ugly, and she's trying to stay relevant. It's clear to me that she's either wittingly or unwittingly being taken advantage of because she's so stupid that she is being used to perpetuate other things, not necessarily terrorist things, as the patterns will show, but maybe even some profit things. So we'll get into that in a second. So I just wanted to play that reel. Welcome you all back. Thanks for joining me. I know it's been a minute. But let's talk about it. So the Flotilla started out in September and then made its way to Tunisia and then made its way to the area of Israel. Now, when they were intercepted, let's just lay down a few facts here. It appears, and I could be wrong, but it appears based on an agreement that was made about a few years ago, the territorial waters actually extend out to 59 nautical miles. I have a graphic I'll put in the notes, which means the Israelis had every right to board that ship. Now, that's just some of the reporting. What I'm going to do while I set up the rest of the show is play for you some of the great coverage that has come out of Sky News. I think they've done a great job in really showing the other side of this. And then we'll get into some of the people on the boat who are actually affiliated directly with Hamas, including the organizers and the steering committee, as you'll see in this next reel. But what I want you to look at, what I want you to take away from tonight's episode is we're focusing on the facts. We have the facts. We have the flotilla. We have a terrorist attack that happened in Manchester on the very day the flotilla got boarded, and these protests erupted around Europe, over in Spain, Italy, Germany, Sydney, Brazil, you name it. Okay. On that same day, it should be noted that Colombia expelled the Israeli ambassador from Colombia on the very same day all these protests erupted. What's the point? The point is, this is all obviously coordinated. The flotilla was just a big distraction. I think it was meant to disrupt. One of the purposes was to disrupt the negotiations between the White House and Hamas and Israel. Why we're negotiating with Hamas, I'll never know. I honestly think we should just nuke the whole place and be done with it. That's Brian O'Shea, not Daily Clout talking, but that's where I stand. But the biggest thing that I took away from the footage from the flotilla people and everything is they called a lot of attention to the dock workers, okay? And that's really what I want to drill into. We're not going to have all the answers tonight, but as you know, when you watch my show, it takes me a while to get on air because I like to watch and read everything. But it does seem odd that the focus was definitely on dock workers. Call the dock workers to rise up and strike. This could mean a few things. There's already port uprisings happening all across Europe, unrelated to what's going on in the Middle East. Some have to do with equal pay, the typical stuff. And that is a little tactic that I saw last time is in Barcelona by the activists. What they will do is they'll merge into an existing protest and then claim it as their own. But there's other things too, like you have to look at, okay, if there's all these port protests based on the capture of the flotilla, which was not a capture at all, you got to ask yourself, like, okay, why the docks? Why not the rail yards? Why the docks in particular? And so we'll cover that. And again, don't have all the answers, but I did want to get on the air because it's been a while. And rather than wait till the investigation's complete, because as you know, no investigation's ever complete, I figure we could do this together. So let me play this next clip. Now, what's really interesting about this is, and I've done the research on what is stated on Sky News, and it all checks out. One thing I can say is there was no food. Apparently, the IDF has reported there's really no food on the flotillas. We did see some video of them throwing like cans of tuna overboard in like plastic bottles and stuff. So I don't know what's up with that, but let me just play this next clip for you. This is the IDF actually going on to one of the vessels and kind of showing like, hey, there's really nothing here. So let me roll this for you.
It's pretty much an empty room. That's right. I'm inside one of the vessels, one of the largest vessels to come in this Yom Kippur flotilla. And while we're processing this boat, there's one thing missing, guys. All this aid that they were supposed to bring into Gaza, which explains one thing to me. I'm sure it explains to you. That when we and multiple other countries offered them to take this aid and bring it to the Gazans, we could facilitate its safe arrival, they flat out rejected it. And now we know why, because it was never about bringing aid to Gazans, but it was all about the headlines and the social media followings.
This is the Israeli Navy. You are approaching a blockaded zone. If you wish to deliver aid to Gaza, you may do so through the established channels. Please change your course toward the port of Ashdod, where the aid will undergo a security inspection and then be transferred into the Gaza Strip.
Okay, so you saw it there. I don't even think it's propaganda. I think what it is a big distraction. I want to state a couple things, though, that are just common sense. Can you imagine back in the Elizabethan time if, Walsingham informed Queen Elizabeth that, hey, there's like 44 Spanish ships sailing towards Ireland, and she said, oh, they're probably just trying to bring aid to the Irish. Let them through. I mean, we have a war zone, okay? And they may have advertised what they're doing, whatever. But as you'll see, there's a few people on this flotilla that are actually directly tied to Hamas. So I'm not trying to sell you on Israel's right to defend itself. I think that's a no-brainer. What I'm trying to get people to see is to look at every side of this story. Everyone looks at the side of, not you guys, but like everyone looks at the side of Palestine, like a lot of misinformed people. They look at the side of Palestine and the poor children starving and all that. Well, let's point out a few facts about that video that we saw earlier. South African government has brought charges of genocide against Israel. Really? Do you know what's going on in South Africa right now with the border? The age-old generational Dutch settlers in South Africa, they're being genocided. They tried to seek refuge in this country because they're being genocided. It's almost a state policy to kill white people in South Africa. But South Africa is going to bring genocide charges against anyone right now? Please, spare me. Okay? Spare me. The other thing I want to point out is the narrative by the flotilla is, oh, we were taken hostage. And as far as I know, pretty much all of them have been repatriated, whatever, sent back. Taken hostage? But you were allowed to shoot videos with your phones while you were taken hostage? Or Chris Smalls, who's the socialist communist guy who mounted he got his fame from an Amazon protest that he did for like workers, whatever. I don't know much about it, so I'm not going to throw too many stones at it. But what I am going to say is Chris Small is an avowed communist. Okay, but he's sitting there and he's saying how the world is wrong and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if Smalls was on the flotilla, but he did the video. But let's say he was on the flotilla. He's got like at least, I don't know, 30, 40 grand in gold chains around his neck, and he's talking about people suffering. Well, hey, brother, sell your gold chains and send them some tuna, please. Okay, so there's so much, if you just look closely, you just see so much contradictions, and I know you know this. I know it's just tiresome. It's just so tiresome that people who are supposed to be educated here in this city, in Brooklyn where I'm at, in New York, can chant and pump their fists up and down and say, yeah, no, free Palestine. Free Palestine? Palestine was free. They had the government they wanted, and they chose to attack and murder and rape and kill their neighbors. Plain and simple. Now people will say, oh, but that's because there was oppression. Really? Oppression? I'm pretty sure Israel's the only place in the Middle East that allows gay marriage. So, you know, the thing is, I'm trying to stay on track, but it just really pisses me off because, yes, my wife is Jewish, but that's not the thing that makes me mad. What makes me mad as an investigator is when people just ignore the facts. Ignore the facts. Okay? We'll get into that another time, but I just had to say it. Okay, so on the British video, we'll cover that really quickly. The original episode was going to be about the synagogue because that was just this horrible massacre that happened in Manchester. And thank God the Jewish communities are smart enough to have their own security forces. Even here in Brooklyn, we went to the Crown Heights Chabad, which is like the network kind of community type thing over there in the Jewish community where they're very welcoming. They invite anyone in. And you get to go hang out, eat food, meet new people. I met a lady who was 102 years old. The story she could tell, and she was Russian Jew. Just amazing. You're invited into people's homes, and they just let you in. Whether you're Jewish or not, you can go to Chabad. They will invite you in. Typically, you got to know someone who's Jewish, but, I mean, it's Brooklyn. So everyone knows someone who's Jewish. But the point is, as I'm walking around with the rabbi, this is about 2 weeks ago, okay, and I just met this guy. My wife called and said, hey, we'd like to go to Chabad. They're like, come on. Yeah, come on in. We get there, buy some flowers for the hosts, and then as we're walking to the rabbi's house, this random Jewish woman says, hi, are you going to Chabad? And we're like, yeah, we're going to Rabbi. Oh, she's like, oh, okay, if you didn't have a place to go, I was going to invite you to our home. We have a lot of people coming, and just really wonderful. Okay, so that aside, as me and the rabbi were walking, we spent 2 hours walking and talking, which was nice. And it was Shabbat, which is every Friday sunset till Saturday sunset, where you can't have devices, so we were talking. And I was asking him everything about the community. We were talking about what's going on in Israel, all that. And as we're walking, I see they have these kind of like police cars. I said, what's that? He said, well, that's our own private security. I said, oh, okay. The police don't help you? He's like, well, they do, but just like any police, they take forever to respond. Their hands are tied. So we have people in this community that we have our own police force. I said, so what do you do? He goes, well, we do citizens arrests. So if someone's here starting trouble, a bunch of our bigger boys will basically ensure that he doesn't go anywhere. I left it at that. But they have to have that. Because as you can see, if they didn't have that security force, that dude over there, whose first name, by the way, is Jihad, would have blown up that whole synagogue. He would have gotten in and blown up the whole thing. And thank God those Jewish people know how to react to that because they're on their own. Okay, there's no flotillas going to help the people in Manchester, people in Crown Heights, nothing like that. They know they're on their own, and they've been on their own. So whether you support, Israel like Jewish people or not, the point is, for almost their entire existence, everyone's been trying to kill them. Okay, so of course they've learned how to be independent and not depend on the rest of the world for anything. Now, yes, I know they get a lot of aid from the U.S., and you know what? They get a lot of aid from other countries too. but it is a drop in the bucket compared to like, oh, I don't know, like the $18 billion a year we give to freaking Pakistan. Yeah, but you didn't know that, did you? $18 billion a year to Pakistan. What's that for? All right, I'm going down the track again. So what I want to point out is, and this really sums it up really nicely, Sky News did a good report on this. This is called The Dark Underside of Greta's Gaza Mission Exposed. Let me roll this for you right now. Oh, yeah. All right. Here we go.
Tonight, I can exclusively reveal several of the organisers behind Greta Thunberg's Gaza Flotilla are supporters of the terror group Hezbollah and its slain leader, Hassan Nasrallah. This is the dark underside of the Gaza convoy that's capturing media attention globally. Thiago Avila is the coordinator of the Freedom Flotilla Brazil and a member of the steering committee.
Hello everyone, I'm Thiago Avila, steering committee member of the Freedom Flotilla Coalition.
In his profile on the Freedom Flotilla website, he even boasts that he's been an activist for the Palestinian cause for 19 years and he's been in prison in the region. After Israel killed Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, Thiago attended his funeral and celebrated the terrorist leader.
Think about liberation of the entire world. When you study the histories of revolutions and anti-colonial struggle and anti-imperialist struggle, we see some figures, some people that they come out, that they shine. And Said Hassan Nasrallah was one of these people.
Nasrallah was Hezbollah's leader for 32 years. He was responsible for the murder of thousands, literally thousands. The attacks under his leadership included the murder of 58 French peacekeepers, the bombing of the US Embassy in Beirut, killing 49 embassy staff, bombing the US and French Marine barracks, killing 299 people, the hijacking of planes, the murder of Saudi diplomats, and many, many more terror attacks. Yet this is a man, the organiser of Greta's Gaza Flotilla, admires. Thiago spoke publicly about how honoured he was to be at Nasrallah's funeral.
So I'm actually very honored to be here. I hope I can convey the message as best as I can.
And Thiago posted video footage on his social media from the funeral as well. And then here he is on the Gaza Flotilla.
It's one of the most beautiful days of my life because we've been struggling so hard to take these boats to the sea, to break the sea, to create a humanitarian corridor. And our boats have been bombed, have been kidnapped, have been attacked. Now we're on our way. Gaza, we are on our way.
Okay, I just want to cut in there really quickly. He talks about the siege, right? Okay, like the Israelis aren't letting food in or out. Keep in mind that the Egyptians are not letting anyone out of Gaza. Okay, they're not letting anyone out. And the same protesters tried to go through Egypt, I think, back in June, and they were repelled by the Egyptians. Okay, so I just want to point that out for those that don't know. This whole, like, Israel's the only ones... Actually, Israel's letting food in, but they do have to inspect it. Okay? Because if they don't, anything could happen. It could just be bad food. It could be poisoned food, so the Israelis get blamed on poisoning the Palestinians. But the only food coming in or out is, you know, really from the Israelis. Egypt's not giving aid. Syria's not giving aid. Qatar's not giving aid, except to Hamas. You know, so where's the rest of the Arab world? Okay, so I'll let you listen to this moron.
Wait.
So that claim there that he'd been kidnapped. Well, remember when Israeli soldiers boarded their last flotilla and gave them sandwiches to eat and water? Yes, that was when they claimed they were taken hostage, a word they used, as you can see on the screen, hostage. Well, someone needs to tell Thiago and Greta that this is what real hostages look like. And just a warning, the footage is distressing, like Eviatar David and Rom Braslavsky, the hostages who've genuinely been kidnapped by Hamas and are being denied food and water. They are on the verge of death, having to dig their own graves. For Thiago to claim he's been kidnapped is an utter insult. Now, it's not just him. There's another Flotilla participant, an Irish comedian, tag Hickey. You can see him sitting to the right of Game of Thrones actor Liam Cunningham at the press conference yesterday. And he was excited to be there.
Welcome to beautiful Barcelona. We're about to set sail to Gaza.
Well, Hickey also attended the funeral of the terrorist Hassan Nasrallah, and he was proud to speak about it online, calling him an iconic and revolutionary leader who stood up to the Zionist enemy.
One thing I'm learning about Hassan Nasrallah, I just knew him from his speeches as a revolutionary leader, as somebody who stood up to the might of the Zionist and US empire and beat them.
And he even said that Western leaders could learn a thing or two from Nasrallah.
A lot of the things I'm learning about him, I kind of think to myself, it would be amazing if some Western leaders behaved in this way.
Seriously? The stupidity. And then after the funeral, Hickey waxed lyrical about what an incredible experience it was and just how sad the occasion was.
To say that I feel privileged and blessed to have been part of that experience is genuinely the understatement of my life. I suppose let's just begin with the obvious stuff. The reports that we heard in the West that there was going to be no one at this funeral, that the resistance in Lebanon was effectively finished, Hezbollah have no longer got any popular support, we can all get a good night's sleep. That may have been a little bit premature, guys. But
oh, what an embarrassment. And Hickey also mourned the death of Nasrallah's bodyguard, writing on social media, "The genocidal scum who killed you are dead inside anyway. Your humanity and integrity lives on." And he was, of course, and it comes as Greta Thunberg refused to call out Hamas as terrorists in a media interview.
We know your views on what's happening and Israel's actions. Can I just ask you your thoughts on Hamas? They're still holding hostages. What would your message to Hamas be?
Again, there is a genocide going on. Palestinians have been living under suffocating oppression, and when there is an occupational force, this is not my views. By international law, people have a right to resist that occupation.
A right to resist. That was her answer to a question about Hamas. Well, just a reminder to Greta, Hamas killed children and even tiny babies in their cots on October 7. Is that resistance? And the following image is still distressing, even though it's partially blurred. And there are so many more images. You can see here, this is a bloodied baby's cot. So many more images and videos from October 7, which unfortunately are too horrific to broadcast. I wish they weren't, because people need to be reminded that those horrors took place, that those murderers chased and gunned down teenagers and killed parents in front of their children. This is the genocidal, bloodthirsty terrorist group that Greta refuses to condemn. The group that started this war and refuses to end it by continuing to hold hostages. Greta and her group, as you know, refused to even watch the footage from October 7. Now they say they're trying to deliver aid to Palestinians. But this is exactly what Israel is doing, as Nate Buzz showed us last night.
How many meals have been distributed as of today?
So I'm not sure of the exact number, but I think we're going to hit 140 million meals delivered in 3 months today.
The entire Freedom Flotilla mission is fraudulent. This isn't about human rights. In truth, they're driven by an irrational hatred for Israel. They glorify terrorism as martyrdom. They praise terror leaders as iconic revolutionary figures. And they extol a murderous movement as resistance. This is a dangerous, disingenuous, misguided mission masquerading as a humanitarian operation when in fact it excuses violence in the name of destroying Israel and Zionists. The Freedom Flotilla should be called out for what it is: a group of self-obsessed, moronic and racist Israel haters.
Watch what magnesium does to your bowel.
Sorry, I'm sure you don't want to know what magnesium does to your bowels. Let me just shut that off. All right, so I got to throw this comment up there. Wild Rose just said, well, after Nuke Them comment, I won't be watching. Now I wonder who's funding you. Who's funding me? You know, seriously, if you want to find out who's funding me, investigate it. I just want to point out that I'm in a bedroom with a card table and a portable camera, so whoever's funding me better send me their check because they're late. These are stupid, lazy comments, and I can't stand them because they're clear that like everything has to be a conspiracy. You know, there could just be bad people and good people that want to expose it, Wild Rose. So if you want to accuse me of anything, by all means do, but bring your facts. I'll bring mine. Let's see who comes out on top. I have a feeling it'll be me. So I can't stand lazy comments, Wild Rose. You can, you know, go pound sand for all I care. That's a stupid comment. Sorry, guys. I'm in that mood. Fake war in Gaza is empty. I'm not sure about that, but if you have some receipts on that, I'd love to look at them. And I'm not doubting you. That sounds actually legit, or at least makes sense. So another comment, Krista Moran, veiled threat, doc strike. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to get into. The gist of this is, okay, so what I noticed was there were a lot of comments on the flotilla. And you saw that Chris Smalls said dock workers, we're counting you dock workers. So did you know that since the flotilla occurred, since it was detained, there have been port strikes in the Port of Elizabeth in New Jersey, port strikes in Italy, all across their major ports, port strikes in Greece, all of their major ports, you name it, it keeps going. There haven't been any in Morocco. Okay, so why did I say Morocco? Because those are the major ports that Europe relies on, is Italy, Greece, Morocco. There haven't been any strikes down there. I also want to point out that there seems to be a lot of Turkish influence in this flotilla, yet Turkey has not stopped trading with Israel at all. I don't really have a point there. I guess the point I'm getting to is there's always something a little bigger than what they're showing us on TV. They want us to think this is about big bad Israel stopping the humanitarians or the idiot humanitarians being duped by the terrorist group, but I think there's something larger than that. Okay, and this to me seems like a port play. And there's more strikes called for on October 16th at all the major ports in the US and also all the major ports in Europe. So, you know, the burden falls on us is to find out which ports strikes are not planned in. Okay, and then you can see the profit motive. And I hate to, you know, leave you just with that, Chris. I know I kind of put that in the episode definition. But like I said, I'm still investigating a lot of this, so I'm getting to it. But what I do find is when we follow the money, we kind of find the cause behind it. Now, where does Hamas come in? Where does Antifa come in with someone making money off them? Well, that's really easy. I mean, look at Antifa all through the pandemic. First, they were like with BLM, okay? BLM itself was a huge profit grab. Like that ACAB area in Seattle, do you know that was all grandfathered in tax zoning? And most of that business has been gobbled up by places like BlackRock, where the police-free zone was. Then we saw Antifa coming in, and suddenly they're like Transtifa, okay? Suddenly they are for trans rights. Then they start attacking people who won't take the vaccine. So these are, I mean, you could call them the Democrat black or brown shirts. Whatever they are, it seems like they go wherever someone who's funding them tells them to go. Okay, and protest that. So when you see these protests all around the United States this past week, yesterday, really look at the geography of where they're protesting. And I guarantee you will find there is a profit motive there. Someone's business is getting shut down, so find out who their competitor is. I will have more on that, but right now that's what I got is all these ports are being shut down by these protests. And I started putting together a graphic. I can call it on the screen. Let me see here. I use something called Lucid Charts for those people that want to know. But what Lucid Chart is, it lets me kind of, and they're not a funder, Wild Rose, but what it does, it lets me kind of visualize the networks. So let me just call that up really quickly. I started putting it together last night. I didn't get that far, but we'll see what I got here. And I'm not going to be able to bring it up because it's on a different Chrome thing. Maybe. No, that's my Jeffrey Epstein file. Yeah, we'll get to that another time. Okay, but the point is, when you start connecting the dots, you're like, okay, you put Global Flotilla in the middle, and then you attach then you draw a line out to, okay, who's on the boats? And we have to go through everyone who's on those boats. So once we do that, we have to see who's affiliated with them. And if you guys can help me, what I really need to do is get into who owns the boats, okay? Because I can tell you right now, I was going down the road of Belt and Road countries. All the Belt and Road countries supported this. But what I noticed is there's a lot of Brits on the boats. Let me call up the graphic here. Hold on. Okay, so this is the actual Flotilla website right here. Let's see if I could get a bigger screen there. Nope. I guess that's as good as it gets, guys. All right, so this is the actual, as you can see here, it is Global Samud Flotilla. Okay. And so right now we're going through all of these names on the boats. Now you can see what's really interesting is the Adagia boat is all Turks and one Algerian. And then they have the different boats here. And this is interesting because you can actually, see where they've gone, when they were intercepted. And I'm already finding a lot of inconsistencies in their stories about this. Like, I feel like when they were over here in Tunisia, they were buying time so they could get there just in time for the negotiations, so they could get there just in time for the first and the second. Okay. So that's what we're working on right now. Krista, I'm sorry I don't have more definitive stuff for you. But there's another thing in this flotilla that I want to point out. Okay. So what happened is, okay, wait, let's get into the terrorists first. Okay. So we have this report, and yes, it is from the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs for Israel. Okay, that is the source, and yes, I know it's not a unbiased source by no means. But what's interesting about the flotilla and this report is all of these things check out. So for instance, you saw this guy here. One of the actual key figures behind the GSF, the Global Samud Flotilla, is Saif Abu Keshik, a Palestinian based in Barcelona and a member of the Flotilla Steering Committee. In June of 2025, Egyptian authorities arrested Abu Keshk, who was leading the quote-unquote March to Gaza campaign in collaboration with Yahya Sarri, a prominent Muslim Brotherhood cleric in Algeria with direct ties to Hamas. Another guy here who's affiliated with the flotilla is Sarri himself, was documented in direct contact with senior Hamas officials during a conference held in Algeria, making support for the Palestinians and the 68th anniversary of the Algerian Revolution. Senior Hamas figures, including Zahir Jabarin and Osama Hamdan, were at this event. So there they are. And I want to point out, you just don't go to these events. You're not going to a Hamas event unless you're invited, because if you do, you'll get killed. These are the senior leaders here. This is one of the organizers of the flotilla. And this is very important to understand. And a lot of these guys you may notice from the video. Another one is Mohammed Nadir El Nouri. He's a humanitarian activist, a Malaysian citizen born in 1987 in Scotland, and founder and CEO of Sinta Gaza Malaysia. El Nouri has supported the financing of several initiatives benefiting entities in Gaza affiliated with Hamas. Among other activities, he funded the construction of a building for the Office of Social Development and an institution operating under Hamas rule. Okay, and it goes on and on. I will put this in the link. Here's another one. So you could see the flotilla itself, whether they had genuine intentions or not, I'm not going to speculate what's in people's minds. But I will say this. If they're unaware of who they are sailing the high seas with, then they're really stupid. And they're really stupid too, because really, what was the plan? Were they going to beach their ships? I mean, what were they going to do? And the reason I bring that up is because there's another documentary that checks out, and it's actually by Legacy Media, where they went and met with Hamas, and they met with the Israelis. It's actually decent reporting. All those beaches that, are under Gaza, territory, they're all mined. Like, they mine those beaches and that shallow water to repel Israeli commandos. Was the flotilla aware of this? Is Hamas leading the flotilla in and saying, come on in, you'll be good, so they could blow up and be martyrs and bring disrepute, and they could blame the Israelis on the, blowing up the flotilla? But they mine their beaches. So you got to ask yourself, do the flotilla leaders have a contact at Hamas? Because I don't know how they're going to get this food ashore without buy-in from Hamas, which tells you they have direct ties to Hamas. I mean, it's pretty simple. Okay, and that is bad. Hamas is a terrorist organization. Okay, go to any UN website, NATO. They might be an elected government, okay, but they're still a terrorist organization. So really, what was the plan there? Tiptoe around the landmines? And I'll play that at the end of the show, so you can see what I'm talking about. But as you could see here, this is actually great analysis that was done. And I did go through these name by name. I'm putting out a Substack on this. These things all check out. And for those that don't know me or know my background, I was in counterterrorism for the bulk of my adult life. I speak Arabic. I was at several agencies working against terrorist groups. I know who they are, okay? I know when something is bullshit. I know when something is legit. This is legit analysis. Okay, I have no reason to doubt it. All right, before we go too much further, let me just see who is on the chat tonight. We talked about Wild Rose. Seems like a nice person. Robert Justin, welcome. Krista, of course, welcome. Tim Davis, welcome. And yeah, the thing that's going on, Tim, in the UK is horrible. It's just terrible. It's a total takeover. The thing about these episodes when you make them, it's so hard not to make an episode that's not 5 hours long because everything is so connected. Okay, and when you see what's happening in the UK, it's a lot of really good trade routes. Connect that with Turkey. What's going on with Turkey right now? Well, in my opinion, Turkey is trying to take over the whole Mediterranean. If you see what's going on with Greece and everything there, and just look at the Turkish military buildup is astounding. Okay, and look at who China is not interfering with. They're not interfering with Turkey. They're not interfering with Russia. Okay, I'm not saying I'm not going to get on the Russia's bad camp and Ukraine's good. What I am saying is, look, a lot of these countries under Biden said we cannot trust the United States, so they made other alliances. I don't blame them. They're probably scared of us. Okay, I mean, I'd be terrified if I was a country leader and Biden, the senile leader of the U.S., said I'm a murderer and I should be taken out. Okay, that's terrifying. Not really from Biden because he never really did anything, but you just never know. So the point I'm making is, yeah, there's a lot of allegiance here. There's a lot of things going on here that are just not that simple. Like, for instance, a lot of people don't know that Israel and Qatar constantly exchange intelligence with each other about who's spying in each other's countries. And a lot of times they'll sell those spies back to the US or back to Russia or back to China, whoever they are. A lot of people don't know that. There's just things that are happening at not a deep state level, but it's more like a lot of it has to do with trade. A lot of it has to do with trade negotiations. I mean, I'd say almost 90% of the terrorist attacks across the world have to do with trade, land, and resources, without a doubt. The terrorists may not think that, but they're usually the stooges that end up getting shot anyways. So anyways, those are the things you have to look at, is like which globalist companies are profiting from a lot of this stuff on the global scale. Who is winning? Who's winning the trade wars? Who's controlling the maritime routes? And those are the things you have to look at, in my opinion. Okay, there was one claim made by the flotilla that I found ridiculous, and I can't make this stuff up. There was one claim that was made that really caught my attention. Okay, so what it was I think it was September 25th. Yeah, here we go. Let me play this guy. It's on I don't know how to do the loop here, so I'm just gonna have to just refresh it. Yeah, listen to this. Now, anyone that knows international politics or
full invasion of Gaza City. At the same time, this is happening and trying to
refresh this. Listen to this.
And just moments ago, we have confirmed a second attack of a drone with an incendiary mechanism against a second boat of our flotilla of our humanitarian non-violent mission. This is happening at the same time as the Zionist entity is escalating the violence against the Palestinian people with a full invasion of Gaza City. At the same time, this is happening and trying to intimidate us. But the international solidarity with the Palestinian people will not be deterred.
Okay, guys, so I want to point out that this claim by the flotilla basically said, officially, that this drone attack happened late Tuesday off the coast of Tunisia. I was like, well, how's that even possible? Why aren't they blaming the Tunisians? And then if you go further into that detail, let me see if I can pull it up here. Okay, in PDFs, there we go. Your computer, self-produced. Hope you don't mind. Yeah, I don't have it up. But basically, CBS News reported on this. I'm going to try to find this too because it's very important. But CBS News really pushed this narrative that the Israelis attacked the flotilla off the coast of Tunisia with a drone attack. And I was like, well, how could they possibly do that? If you saw that footage, it looks like it came from the land. I'm sure someone else called them out on that too. And the excuse given was basically, oh, well, it came from an Israeli submarine. So I want to point out that the flotilla was docked in Tunisia. There were 1,900 feet from the Tunisian shore. So you're telling me that a Israeli Dolphin-class submarine, the only submarine in the Israeli Navy that can launch drones, somehow came to periscope depth 1,900 feet from the Tunisian border so they could launch their drone, which somehow had an incendiary device on it. Usually the drones they launch, they can carry munitions, but they're normally like a periscope. They're replacing the periscope. But they're sticking with this, and CBS News reported on it. And of course, when you go to CBS News reporting on this, their source is unnamed officials. Yeah, here we go. So this is CBS News. And we all know about CBS News. All right. So CBS News. I mean, yeah, granted, they've lost all credibility in the last few years, but who ordered drone attacks on Gaza-bound humanitarian aid boats off the coast of Tunisia, sources say. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu directly approved military operations on 2 vessels early last month that were part of a Gaza-bound flotilla carrying pro-Palestinian supporters, including Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg, a.k.a. Gollum from Lord of the Rings. 2 American intelligence officials briefed on the matter told CBS News that Israeli forces on September 8th and 9th launched drones from a submarine and dropped incendiary devices onto the boats that were moored outside the Tunisian port of Sidi Bou Said, causing a fire. Okay. Let's just put on our common sense hats here. If Israel is going to take the chance of parking submarines off the coast of Tunisia, which I haven't done since 1985, I did the research, to launch a drone attack on a flotilla, don't you think they do more than drop a flare? Because that looked like a flare to me. Okay, and it set, by the way, it set a freaking life vest on fire. Okay, the officials spoke under the condition of anonymity because they were not authorized to speak publicly on national security matters. Attention, Donald Trump's camp administration. Clearly, you have a couple more leakers talking to CBS. Chances are these don't exist. This never happened. No one ever talked to CBS. They made it up. Because I'm not even sure. I could tell you without a doubt, after spending decades in the intelligence community, we would never know whether or not Netanyahu ordered a drone strike that would be this controversial. You think the Israelis are going to share that with us? You think we're going to hack it and find out somehow? Our intelligence capability is not that great. It's just really big. Okay, but it's got limitations. That's what a lot of people don't understand. And I stay in constant contact with my friends in the intel community, and they're like, this goes in the file called Never Happened. Okay. Under international humanitarian law, the law of armed conflict, the use of it, okay, that is a non-issue because, again, I don't think Israel launched drone strikes from a submarine 1,900 feet off the coast of Tunisia, which, by the way, would cause literally a war if Israel did that. Israel has enforced a naval blockade. Okay, that's just fluff to distract you. The Israel Defense Forces didn't respond to CBS's request. I don't blame them. Organize the international blockade. Okay, September 8th, a incendiary device was dropped onto the family, a Portuguese-flagged vessel. The Global Samud Flotilla told CBS News that on the night prior to the attack, Portuguese lawmaker Mariana Mortágua was on board. The activists believe the perpetrators deliberately waited until the elected officials or high-profile figures were absent. Okay, so on September 9th, the Alma-flagged vessel was attacked in a similar manner as the family. In both cases, the group said last month that the boats were damaged by fire, but the crew was able to extinguish the flames quickly. No one was killed or injured. Confirmation of Israeli involvement would not surprise us. It would simply lay bare a pattern of arrogance and impunity, the Global Samud Flotilla said in a statement on Friday. Now, they're not saying they believe Israel confirmed it, even though by then CBS News is saying they confirmed it. They're saying it wouldn't surprise them, so just always read between the lines here. The statement added, whether the purpose of these attacks was to kill us, scare us away, or disable our boats, they recklessly endangered civilians, humanitarian volunteers. The world must take note. Attempts to silence, intimidate, okay, whatever. In September, Tunisian authorities, now this is the key part. They always bury these parts. And this is, I'm going with the news because the name of the show is like looking behind the headlines, so I think I should do a little analysis here. This is what legacy media does when they have a statement that refutes their headline. They bury it about 2/3 of the way down. In September, Tunisian authorities disputed that drones dropping incendiary devices caused the fire. instead claiming that initial inspection indicated the explosion originated inside the boat, according to the BBC News. Pro-Israel accounts on social media claim the fires were started after the activists did not use a flare gun properly. I mean, again, it looked like a flare. It looked like a flare. Footage released by the global Samud Flotilla and obtained by CBS News appears to show a ball of flames falling onto the boat, otherwise known as a flare. Sparking, and by the way, anyone that does any video, you could see that they turned, you could turn the brightness and the illumination way up on your camera to make it seem a lot bigger. Clearly, it only burned one life jacket because that's the only thing they showed us, instead of the fire originating from the inside of the vessel. Yeah, but that's, okay, so basically, pro-Israel accounts, social media claim the fires were started after activists did not use a flare gun properly. Okay, then they go down here to say, the news appears to show a ball of flames falling onto the boat, which still supports the flare gun theory, sparking the fire on board instead of the fire originating from inside the vessel. Most people are saying it didn't originate from inside the vessel. It was used from a flare gun used improperly. I'm pretty sure Greta Thunberg is a maritime ninja who would never make a mistake like that, but hey. The stationary cameras affixed to the vessel do not capture where the flames originated from prior to landing on the boat, nor do they depict a flare gun being fired. Well, no kidding. We only see it when it comes down. What you also don't hear on the video is any drones, okay? And drones are really loud. I have 3 of them. They're super loud. In a separate incident, activist groups said they were attacked by 15 low-altitude drones while sailing south of Greece. The global Samud Flotilla said at least 13 explosions were heard on or around several flotilla boats, and objects were dropped on at least 10 boats, causing damage. While no casualties were reported, the activist group said that their communication systems were jammed. Okay, well, that's kind of a funny aside. They could have jammed their communications. Again, I have no intel to refute that or support it. What is funny about that story is that I heard whoever jammed their comms jammed them with ABBA music, which, if it really happened, is pretty funny. Or, I don't know, because it's ABBA music, maybe someone in the flotilla, because it's like 44 boats, tuned it to the wrong frequency and jammed themselves because they like ABBA and they wanted everyone to, I don't know. Anyways, what I want you to see here is the way these things are twisted to make it sound like Israel, Israel, Israel, Israel. And again, I'm not paid by Israel. I'm no champion of Israel. They are our ally. I'm America first, okay? I'm also truth first, and I cannot stand BS, especially bad BS. And this is why I'm picking this apart. Because, again, so Israel is rolling all over the Mediterranean with their Dolphin-class subs, shooting drones into the sky, dropping flares, and none of these countries are, all these countries are okay with that. Greece is okay with that. Everyone, seriously? It's just stupid. 2 Americans sailing with the global Samud Flotilla included Marine Corps veteran Jessica Clotfelter and Greg Stoker, organizer of the veterans delegations to the group. On Wednesday, they spoke via Zoom to CBS Chicago an hour before Israeli Navy intercepted the flotilla. Okay, so that's thrown in there because they're veterans, plain and simple. Okay, and as a veteran, I can tell you, you can't trust all veterans. Sorry, you can't. Okay, most of us are really good people, but it's a big army. It's a big Marine Corps. It's a big Navy. It's a big Air Force. Just because they're veterans doesn't make them honest. All right, so it goes on and on. That was the one thing. I think it's impossible that there was a drone attack from they would have been okay if they said it was a drone attack. A couple Israelis got on land. They were shooting drones at us, flares at us via drones. What makes more sense to me is a flare gun went off and they filmed it. And basically they screwed up with the flare gun and then they wanted to blame that on Israel, even though pretty far away from Tunisia, but they covered that by saying there was a sub. Just kind of silly. I will say this, though. What's really interesting is if you go back to the site here, let me share this tab with you. All right, go back to the actual official Flotilla site. There's other videos of, the guy like driving the boat, and you hear a drone like that, and he's like ducking and dodging and all that. I won't call it up because it'd take too long to load. But I will say this. If you do a little research, okay, go to the media tab, okay? Go to the media kit. Okay, sharing that tab. All right, go to the videos. This is on their site. And let me see which one it is here. One of these here. What you're going to find, it'll take me there it is. Okay, so what do you notice here? What do you notice about these file names? DJI. These are all their drone videos. The only confirmed drone that we have around this whole flotilla is actually from the flotilla. Okay, they're shooting nice pictures here with their DJI drone. I have 3 of them. They're great drones. Really hard to land on a ship, though. But I just want to point that out, that we keep hearing about all these drone attacks and drones buzzing. They have video of drones coming in and drones scaring them, all that nonsense. Well, the people we know for sure had a drone was one of the boats. They have a DJI drone. You go to their media kit, it's DJI files. When you save a file from a DJI drone, it automatically says DJI. Okay, so again, cutting through a lot of the BS there. All right, before we go on too far, because I've been looking at this way too long. I did not prepare a script for this, but what I will say is this. The flotilla, in coordination with, not only the negotiations between Hamas, the White House, and Israel, also very close to October 7th, also very close to all of these huge dock worker strikes. It's another distraction. Okay, what the distraction is, I don't know, but if you look at that video, if you look at that video from that IDF soldier who's inspecting the boat, he only found radios, cameras, and pamphlets, according to the IDF. Take that for what it's worth. And pamphlets. They didn't find any food. There's other footage of these guys throwing food overboard. They claim they were kidnapped. You could see in the videos they're giving them food and warm clothing. They're letting them keep their phones. They bought their tickets to come back. They were detained, I think, at a total of 55 hours. There was a rumor floating around that they forced Greta to kiss the Israeli flag, and then someone put up that image, and it was clearly like a really bad Photoshop job, and that got torn apart instantly. So my point on all of this, and I just want to make sure I've covered everything, my point on all of this is zoom out when you see these things, okay? Zoom out when you see these things. And what you want to do is you want to start looking at who is affiliated with such large protests and flotillas and things that are grabbing the attention of people. And start looking at the Red-Green Alliance and what they're pushing and promoting. Okay, and I'm putting some up there now. Then start looking around your own streets. Start looking at, okay, what's going on in my own hometown. Look on the telephone poles. Look for the Marxist stuff, because the Marxists use the Islamic extremism kind of as their cudgel to cause the chaos, to cause the mayhem, to get the people calling for something, some order, some safety. So really, in my opinion, the goal of all of this is to cause so much chaos, to affect the economy by shutting down the ports. All of this just in time for the midterms. Because they want America to be under the control of the Marxists or the Democrats again, and this would undermine all of Trump's victories, to have the economy fail, to have chaos on the streets. That's what they're trying to do. That's why there's so much chaos. And you can see as I'm going through this, it's plain as day. And this is your typical, this can be your typical thing you'll hear if you go to these sites. And you have to get off Twitter. You have to go to like Blue Sky and stuff and Instagram and to find out a lot of these things. But just listen.
It to your For You page due to the Western media blackout on the global swim flotilla. But there are two really important updates to know about the flotilla right now. And one of the updates is actually good news for once. The Global Swim Flotilla is a fleet of over 70 vessels from 44 countries around the world sailing to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza and break the siege. Sailing on the flotilla are activists from around the world, including Greta Thunberg and Sarah Sarandon. This is the second time activists have sailed around the world to deliver humanitarian aid to Gaza. But in May of this year, activists aboard the Madeleine were abducted in international waters by the Israeli military, detained and deported. So now they've returned with a much bigger fleet and delegations from over 44 countries around the world. But just a couple days ago, 10 boats in the flotilla were attacked by Israeli drones. Explosive devices and toxic chemicals hit the flotilla boats, and activists aboard the flotilla called on their respective governments to send help. Now, miraculously, the Italian Navy and shortly after the Spanish Navy both agreed to send protection for the flotilla. This is very unusual, especially given that the current Prime Minister of Italy is a right-winger. Now, why is the Italian government sending their own naval ships out to support the flotilla? Right. It's because earlier this week, thousands of Italians across the entire country went on general strike. Ports that were previously being used to deliver military shipments to Israel were completely blocked by Union Italian dock workers. This is extremely powerful evidence of the effectiveness of a well-organized general strike. A prime example of how organized labor is truly at the core of the ability to make political change in society. The support of labor unions and rank-and-file workers in key disruptive sectors like logistics, Italians were able to completely shut down their economy and send a powerful message to their government that they must stand with Palestine or else the people will rise up. And most importantly, the people will use their leverage as workers to stop the flow of profits. And this is part of why we're seeing the global community, not just Italy, shifting their stance on Gaza. The most important thing we've heard from comrades currently on the flotilla is that the best way to keep the flotilla safe is to continue keeping eyes on it. We can break the siege on Gaza, and we can pressure our governments to end the genocide.
Funeral, by the way. So you kind of get a sense of this, like what's going on. It's also, there's been a huge advertising campaign going right here in Brooklyn, where on the 2nd, I started finding flyers everywhere. And this is some scary stuff. This to me seems like the distraction. I mean, it's obviously, Hamas is a real terrorist group. They need to be eliminated for sure. They're not a legit government. That's so not to diminish the terrorist angle, but I think the larger play here is there's a rush by the RevComs or the Revolution Communists and all the Marxist groups in America and the West to cause chaos so they can seize power of our institutions. I know that sounds like something out of a movie, but surely you know that it's not beyond the pale right now. But I found at least hundreds of these flyers all around the Flatbush area, Brooklyn, all the way up to Park Slope. And if you know Brooklyn, you'll know what I'm talking about. But this was I found I'm sorry I don't have my camera flipped. But these things were all over the street, this little pamphlet. And don't get me wrong, there's always stuff like this in New York, but there were tons of them freshly printed. It says, we host our educational program every Saturday after distro. I don't know what distro is. Taught by mass cadre. Join us to collectively study decolonization, organization, and revolution. From the masses for the masses, join the fight, liberation, looking to make financial contribution. Here's our link. Of course, you could always contribute. Are you looking to join our org? Ask us about joining our signal. So yes, I'm going to definitely look into this and set up a fake ID so I can get in there and find out what's going on. It's called Mutual Aid, the reciprocal exchange of resources, food, clothing, books within the community, where everyone can contribute and receive support based on need. Okay, that's called like a Maoist commune, by the way. Scientific socialism, a movement based on scientific principles and material conditions rather than abstract ideals. Of course, they left out, people's skill and value. Our main objective is to create systems of support that exist out of capitalist and state control. We recognize how inequality impacts everyone and use our distro to reject capitalism's commodification of basic needs. We believe in solidarity, not charity. Distro, nickname we use for our weekly distribution or distribution. Weekly distro. So I guess this is the weekly distro, whatever this rag is here. Anyways, the point I'm making is like this stuff is happening not only in the big cities like I'm in right now, but I'm finding this stuff in Massachusetts, most of the blue states, even down to the suburbs. So when you're walking the dog and when you're looking around and you're trying to figure out what is going on, please look at the telephone poles, look at those community bulletin boards. A lot of us are online. These people are in the streets and they are organizing, and they've been organizing for a while, and they're up against the gun because they have to win the midterms in this country. Take all of this stuff. Yes, it is. The focus is America because we are the leaders of the free world. And without Congress, Donald Trump's going to have a lot of trouble keeping up the momentum he's been doing. And that momentum, in my opinion, is the very thing that has fought back and pushed back dramatically against what I see as the 100-year marathon for the communists to literally take over the world. All right, guys, I'm going to call it a night, but before I do have to talk about our sponsors. And oh, here you go, Wild Rose. Here's my deep state funders. Joey123 is saying, no, I'm Israel first. No, I'm actually not Israel first because I'm American. I'm a combat veteran. America first. Allies always come after America. That's inarguable. Just, research me. But I like Israel. I like allies that, granted, aren't like perfect allies. No one ever is. But you know what? We've used them a lot, and they've used us. And in my opinion, probably one of the best allies we have. I don't care if you like that or not. I don't know why everyone's so anti-Israel. Why aren't you guys like anti-China, who's done far worse, or anti-Pakistan, who's done far worse than anyone I know, or anti-South Africa in the last 3 years? Why is everyone like anti-Israel? Like Israel is granted a powerful country, but do you really believe Israel's responsible for like all the evils of the world? Give me a break. It's so stupid. It's so mentally lazy. And there's no facts to support that. That's the craziest part. But anyways, yeah, where's your anti-China stuff? I go to Europe, my friends in Holland, they're like, oh, China's not a threat. I'm like, really? Then why are they taking all your stuff? Why do they run your UN? Why do they run the tech behind your financial exchanges? So we don't have to get into it now, Joey, but I do appreciate being here, and I will call up every comment on the stage. I like your Jesus thing, too. I'm Catholic, by the way. Throws a monkey wrench in that, but all right. So, sorry, audience. I don't mean to sound hostile. I love you all, and I appreciate the time you've taken out. So I will be a little more polite because you took the time to be here. Joey, thank you for your comment. But no, I'm not Israel first. America first, all the way. Just making sure we've covered everything here. We have, okay, but looking there, they are. Okay, I don't agree with my sponsors' graphics. Are a little kind of gross, but they make the point. Share the screen. Okay. Sorry for... So NativePath is our sponsor. You definitely want to check them out. I actually take a lot of this stuff here. So they just sent us the NativePath creatine, and I've never used creatine before, but I know what leucine is, and leucine is one of those aminos that is like really, really good for you. Really builds muscle fast. And then also the collagen, which I take religiously. That's why I have this full head of hair at my old age. I love NativePath. They've been with us for a long time. Daily Clout Network listeners, you get a 45% discount. Even if you don't agree with me on Israel or anything I've said tonight, you got to agree with me on the fact that your body needs collagen and it stops producing it after 28 years old. And not all collagen is built the same. I'm not even on the script right now. I just love this stuff. get the collagen, get the creatine, especially if you're over 28, because you're going to feel better. You're going to have less injuries. You got to do other things, of course, but great company. I've actually done the due diligence on them, and we are going to publish that over at consumerdiligence.org, separate from Daily Cloud. They're a great company. Very honest, very good, and they price things right. Of course, everyone makes profit, but they offer great discounts because this guy really cares about health. You can go over to Daily Cloud. God, I hate looking at this stuff. But okay. Yeah, I'm just kind of cruising through that. There he is. That is the founder of the company. He's done an interview with Naomi Wolf, my wife, several times. And just listen to what he has to say. He's a really good guy who really cares about health, and he has a personal reason for caring about it, which I won't talk about now. But he's the founder of NativePath. So go there, get your native hydrate, get your native collagen. It's all good stuff. And native creatine is fantastic. And there is Cousin Ernie right on time. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. Yeah, I can't say enough about this. And mention this show when you go over there, okay? Because if you mention it, then I can end the age-old argument between my wife and I that people actually care about health on Investigate Everything, and we're not a bunch of true detectives that sit up all night trying to break things down. No, seriously. Definitely mention the show, but as long as you use the Daily Cloud URL, it's going to get you there. But just use hashtag Daily Cloud for your code when you go in there, and you will get that discount. If you have any trouble with that, email me, okay, and let me know. Let me see if I have a banner up that has those instructions. Yeah, there it is. So you want to go to getnativepath.com/dailyclout. You can stock up on NativePath collagen for an incredible, it's 45% off. That's really good. And get the creatine too. So anyways, guys, that is it tonight. This is to be continued. Like I said, I didn't have a lot of answers. For those of you that don't know who Nasrallah is, I do want to point out that it was 60 Minutes that actually interviewed him in 2006. So remember when they said all those guys went to Nasrallah's funeral? That's a big deal. This is the guy that, you had two guys on the ship that were like, oh, more leaders should listen to Nasrallah. So why don't we listen to Nasrallah? With that, I'm going to let you go. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back as soon as I can. Okay, not tonight, but soon. All right, thanks for joining me. And to all those people that I said mean things about in the comments, you're always welcome here, and your opinions are too, but please bring your receipts. Always. This is Brian O'Shea with Investigate Everything and double checking the comments. I got everyone covered. And they just, wait a minute. Whoa. Zoe Joey, you got to tell me what that means. This is interesting. They just purchased 1/6 of our media to censor. Who is they? Which media did they censor? Zoe Joey, if you've got this and you've written the report, send me the Substack. I will follow you. If it's a good report and you've got information like this, by all means, send it to me. Send it to me at brian@dailyclout.io, or you could go to my X, which is Brian O'Shea SPI. Send me a DM. If you have written this up and you've done the research and you have sources for this, send it. I'll feature it on my show. I'll feature you on my show. Let me know. I'm always interested in looking at everything. Okay, anyone who's been with this show for a long time, I look at everything. I don't care who's the ally, who's not, doesn't matter to me. Okay, I'm the one guy on the right that probably said, I think Mangione's innocent. Not for ideal reasons, but because I've done the research and the case doesn't support what the prosecution's saying at all. So anyway, Zoe Joey, that is a huge statement. And I'm not being sarcastic with you. I will definitely read anything you send me, but it's got to be sourced. Okay, Brian@dailyclout.io. I'd love to see what you have. That's very interesting. So thanks for sharing. All right, guys, I'm going to call it a night there, but let's leave you with this guy. Have a great night.
والمقاومة الإسلامية حقها وواجبها.
أنا أقول لهم أن عليهم أن يسرعوا بالخروج من الوحل اللبناني. إذا كانوا يراهنون على تعبنا فنحن شباب الحمد لله ولن نتعب بهذه البساطة، ونحن نراهن على حجم الخسائر عندهم، وهذا الحجم سيزداد يوما بعد يوم. الآن سيخرجون وغدا سيخرجون. إذا أرادوا أن يحتفظوا ببقية جنودهم عليهم أن يسارعوا الخروج من لبنان.
And you won't find forgiveness here, just the thump of fists. They feel hurt, humiliated, and determined to fight back. Are you scared?
Of course not. Of course not. I sent my first son for martyrdom with pride, and I'm willing to send my second and my third son too.
These are generations willing to sacrifice it all. Some say they'll only stop when Israel vanishes.
If war happens and we're martyrs, this is good for us. But in any cases, we will win this war.
But they will only take their cue from one man.
For now, nothing is clear. Nasrallah is the one to speak. We only listen to him. He owns the decision and he decides everything.
Before his leader even speaks, though, a warning shot.
Well, we've just heard 4 loud booms. It's likely Israeli aircraft over Beirut. It is a reminder of just how tense this moment is, and yet still they stay.
Israeli jets breaking the sound barrier before Hassan Nasrallah said he and others had a duty to perform.
Hezbollah is obligated to respond. Iran will respond, Hezbollah will respond, and the enemy is watching and counting every strike.
On Beirut's seafront, it seems like business as usual, but many also know this week matters and could reshape the region. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News, Beirut, Lebanon.